Next this evening, a popular app used by lots of Londoners to find cheap licensed taxis has been banned in Germany. A court in Frankfurt has ruled that Uber allows private drivers to dodge rules on wages, safety measures and insurance that other licensed taxi firms have to abide by. So could London be about to follow suit, or is Uber here to stay? I'm joined by Steve McNamara from the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association and Garrett Emerson from Transport for London. Thank you both for coming in. Garrett, if I can start with you, could you see a time when Uber is banned in London?
Well, I don't think anything that goes on in Germany has got particular relevance, because obviously the legislation that relates to licensing taxis and private hire vehicles in London is London legislation, and it's very different in many, many ways to that elsewhere. But there is a considerable sort of degree of interest in this at the moment, and the question about the app and the way it's used and to whether it conforms with our legislation. And it's something.
And does it? Because you talked today about. Previously, you've said you've kind of backed Uber, but you talked today about grey areas. What are those grey areas?
We think that on the balance of probability that it certainly it does comply with the legislation. However, we accept that this is a difficult area in the light of these technology developments and so on. There is an argument to be made, which is why we've said that this is a question of interpretation of the law, and the quickest way to sort that out is to go to the High Court and to seek a declaration that will enable us to be definitive of that, and we're happy to abide by that.
Did you cheer when the news came through about Germany today?
It's happening all over the world. Uber have been banned in many places, not just in Germany. The difference between the German authorities and the authorities here in London is that they're staunch regulators. They enforce their rules and regulations. Unfortunately, here in London, Transport for London, when threatened with Uber's money, Uber's political might and Uber's army of lawyers, have simply kowtowed to them and surrendered and run up the white flag.
Garrett, how did you respond to that?
Well, I think we disagree with that fundamentally. As I say, we're keen as anybody to sort this out. In fact, we'd like to see it sorted out in the High Court sooner. I don't think we actually disagree that it's going to get sorted out there sooner or later. It's just a question of how we get there.
I should read a statement out from Uber itself today on what happened. All Uber drivers are licensed by TfL. They drive cars which are required by TfL to be the subject of rigorous check. The situation in Germany cannot be compared to London. It is a different set of laws, vehicles and legislation, as you pointed out, Garrett. Steve, for those who don't know, what are your big arguments against Uber? We saw you try to bring the capital to a standstill in protests against this company.
Fundamentally, Uber's method of operation is totally against the Private Hire Vehicles Act that Garrett's supposed to be enforcing. They use a meter in the vehicle. We say it's a meter, the Mayor says it's a meter, the minicab industry says it's a meter, everybody says it's a meter except for Garrett and his lawyers. That's one fundamental principle. Their bookings are taken in Holland. They're deliberately set up that way so they can avoid paying tax in the UK. This is a multi-million-pound conglomerate that's come over here with intentions of making profit, not paying a single penny of tax in the UK, running a horse and cart through the laws, and Garrett and TfL are allowing them to do it. Are
you in the business of protecting the customer who wants competition, or should you also be looking at protecting the iconic London black cab driver?
Well, we're in the business of licensing and regulating both the private hire industry and the taxi industry in London in accordance with the laws of the country, both the main legislation and the local London legislation.
But it's taking you, the technology is going on and on and on, getting better and better and better. It's taking TfL a long time to address this issue of Uber.
We certainly don't want to get in the way of the technology developing, but we do want to make sure that operators are operating within the law. We've looked into Uber very carefully, and it's certainly not true to say they're taking bookings in Holland. They're taking bookings in Uber London Limited, based in London, and we're quite comfortable that that is being done within the terms of the private hire legislation.
Your organisation is against Uber, but a lot of your drivers have now joined Uber, haven't they?
No, they haven't. It's a complete and utter myth.
Uber says
lots of things. They would say that, wouldn't they?
So none of your drivers?
I would argue there's probably less than a handful of drivers in London have taken on Uber. A simple test is if you bring a taxi up on the app, push the button and watch the taxi disappear. They don't exist.
Steve McNamara and Garrett Emerson, thank you for coming in. Thank you.